All right, team's coming off a big overtime win, heading back on the road to face a Temple team with a really good score, really good rebounder. Just your thoughts?
Well, a great challenge for us to go on the road. You look at the last two games that we played against Temple, both overtimes, 2-point losses on our end. Really just kind of epic battles, great college basketball games. I watched both of them last night again. With Quentin Rose, the all-time leading scorer in our league, one of only 3 or 4 players in Temple history with the 1,500 points, 500 rebounds, 500 assists, 200 steals. I mean, he's just an all-around tremendous player. And those other guys have dramatically improved as well. Pierre Louise is one of my favorite players in the league because how hard he plays. And they're getting really good production from Alani Moore at the point, and now Monty Scott coming off the bench has kind of been the last 2 weeks their most dynamic scorer. So very talented team. Our guards have to match up really well against their guards. We have to do a great job of taking care of the basketball, and we need to build on the momentum that we got the other night. Making critical plays at critical times of the game is something that we've been missing in some games. There's been other games where we've been able to really execute and get the job done, and hopefully that will continue. Our job right now, individually and collectively, is to be playing our best basketball of the season. And if you look at the last 6 games, we've played pretty well. And now you need to finish playing pretty well with critical plays down the stretch, and it was good to see us do that the other night.
You mentioned Monty Scott. I mean, coming off the bench the last, I think, 6 games, he's averaging 16 points for them. And he seems to be doing it primarily in the mid-range, which is kind of a lost art, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And, obviously he was a dynamic scorer at Kennesaw State, sat out last year, really used the redshirt year to even expand his game. Dynamic scorer off the dribble. He can get to the basket, and as you said, very good mid-range game, which is unique nowadays. He can stop on a dime and rise up, and they set a lot of ball screens for him. So if you have sloppy ball screen coverage, he's able to shoot behind that as well. But he's still dangerous from the 3. He's a good enough shooter where you can't just play off him. You have to guard him in all 3 areas. And where Temple's great is in the open court. They're a very unselfish team, as good a passing team as there is in this league in terms of making one more pass, the extra pass, finding the next open guy. And guys have really benefited from it. Alani Moore shooting the 3 extremely well. Pierre Louise being able to knock down enough shots, and then obviously with great power on his drive. He's the one guard that's similar to in this league that's very similar to our guards. Not only a straight line driver, but is able to, around the basket, kind of contort himself to get to the free throw line and finish plays. Hurt us last year in a lot of that. And they're rotating their big guys, and they got a lot of them. So it's a great challenge because they're so dynamic offensively. It's a team in our league that you can't just take away one aspect and think, okay, you're in good position. They can score in a lot of different ways. And one thing that goes unnoticed is they're in the top 30 in the country in defensive field goal percentage.
Yeah, it's like 40%.
Yeah, they're really good defensively. And when you add that to the fact that they have 2 out of the top 5 players in the league that are leading in steals. Quentin Rose is the all-time leading steal guy in our league. So they can get it done in a lot of ways. They've lost, this league, I think it's 38% of the games have been decided by 5 points or less or in overtime. And the teams that are having the really good years have won most of those. Cincinnati comes to mind. Wichita State comes to mind. Won another one last night against Temple. Teams like us, teams like UConn, teams like Temple have lost a lot of those games. And that's usually the difference between a good and a great season.
You mentioned Cincinnati. You've got Temple this weekend, then you've got Cincinnati. 2 teams that you haven't faced all season. Does it almost feel like a non-conference game's been wedged into the end of your season?
All right, so we haven't played Temple yet.
Right.
We haven't played Cincinnati, and we end up with SMU, who we played the first game of the year. I think it was December 12th or something. I'm joking, but that's what it feels like. You know what I mean? It might have been in 2019 when we played them. So I don't know how the schedule works out that way, but it's much more of a challenge, and it's because you're not playing them till later. As the season progresses, you're not accumulating, at least personally, as much stuff because you're concentrating on the next game and being prepared for the game after that. So it is very difficult, and it's unique, I would think, I would hope.
A group of teams, you even throw in teams like SM, Memphis, and Tulsa, all vying for the same thing. It's really going to come down to the conference tournament and a bunch of those close games you talked about. What are you trying to zero in on where you guys can make a run and be on the right end there?
There's going to be, the tournament is going to be unbelievable, because if it's anything like I just talked about with the regular season, and there's going to be 2 or 3 teams that need to win multiple games or maybe even need to win it to move on to play in the postseason. When you get in those type of games, 2 big keys: taking care of the basketball through the whole 40 minutes is critical, because in those games you can't give up easy baskets, and if you can eliminate those during the game, then towards the end you're in better shape. And the second one, you got to make your free throws. You have to do a really good job of making critical free throws, and everybody always concentrates at the end of the game, but those free throws in those first 32 minutes are every bit as important. Because if you go to the line and you miss 2 or you miss the front end of a one-on-one, that's just like a turnover. That's an empty possession. And what's even worse sometimes is you work really hard and you've drawn a foul, and now you got some momentum because of that, and it's kind of like it deflates you when you don't get anything from it. So those 2 are key when you come to the postseason.
The last 8 games or so, Justin Brown really seems to turn the corner, does a little bit of everything for you guys. Is it fair to call him your glue guy?
Yeah, oh yeah, no doubt about it. He is, and that role is expanding. I personally think, and I looked around at some of the statistics and looked around at some different things. If Justin Brown isn't the most improved player in the league, I don't know who is. Was forced into a very difficult situation and has responded extremely well, especially in league play. He's got a little more comfortable at that spot, and the rebounding, for his size and what he's doing in this league, I'm not sure any other 6'4" guy has gotten 16 rebounds in a game, 13 rebounds in another game, and his game is expanding on offense, which is the progression you like to see. He's now starting to finish some more plays around the basket. He's starting to get that mid-range game, which is a great complement to his 3-point shooting. And he's doing a really good job in his decision-making, because our 4-man handles the ball quite a bit as we go to our 4-out, 1-in action. So he's done a really good job of that, and he's blossoming right in front of our eyes. He was always a key component for us, but he's doing the things that kind of, as you said, glue us together and are critical for our success.